Remember that new housing law that drew bipartisan support in both chambers of Congress? Most ambitious legislation in the field of housing since the early 90s that President Trump was all set to sign on Capitol Hill before he abruptly canceled the signing session last week. Well, word is that the president will sign that housing law this week, in fact, possibly as early as today. So what's in it and what's changed? Newsmax Chief Washington Correspondent James Rosen is taking us through some of the key items in this legislation. Good afternoon to you, James.
Shannon, good afternoon to you. After a conference that reconciled competing measures, both houses of Congress approved this final bill with overwhelming numbers last week. In the Senate, the effort was led by Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, and Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina. In the House, Democrat Maxine Waters of California and Republican French Hill of Arkansas were the prime movers. The 5 senators who voted no, by the way, were all Republicans. Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, Mike Lee of Utah, Rand Paul of Kentucky, Rick Scott of Florida, and Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. The 21st Century Road to Housing Act combines a number of measures, some favored by conservatives, others by progressives, that aim to reform land use and zoning policies at the local level, thereby increasing homeownership and supporting renters. Among some 50 provisions, the law streamlines environmental reviews to speed the construction of new homes. It also loosens the definition of so-called manufactured housing, so that more such homes, which are constructed entirely in factories before being shipped to their ultimate destinations, can be marketed. The measure also increases grants for new homes and the conversion of abandoned structures into viable dwellings. In addition, the act raises the caps on investments that banks can make in low-income housing projects, expands access to small-dollar mortgages for low-income residents and veterans, and perhaps most important, according to industry analysts, the bill restricts the number of single-family homes that institutional investors can gobble up.
Part of this bill could make the biggest difference for families trying to buy a home?
I think if you're a real estate agent or if you're looking to buy a home, it's the same answer. It's the impact on the local municipalities and the local governments. So giving counties and giving the states the authority to release land and let it be developed, and also limiting the ability for large corporations to purchase the homes that are approved level. That's been one of the biggest issues, certainly throughout Florida, Tennessee, Texas.
Now, there was an anchor who knew how to ask the right questions. Support for renters in this bill, by the way, takes numerous forms, including measures to ensure that public housing apartments maintain proper climate control. Shannon.
James, flattery will get you everywhere. What are you doing tomorrow this time? Will you come back with us?
Sure. I'll be here.
Good to see you. Good to see you, friend. Thank you for your analysis, as always. Great to have you. Our political panel joins us now. Democratic strategist and national trial attorney Madeline Somerville is with us today. Also joining us, GOP strategist and co-founder of Cornerstone Group International, Chet Love. Good to have you both. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
So the housing legislation covers a lot of ground. But even, with the bill, if it becomes law and the president, signs it, we're expecting him to. Mortgage rates are still really high. Is that, Madeline, is that the biggest obstacle for home buyers right now in your purview?
I think it's an interesting question because, in general, housing is incorporated into the general expenses that everybody has every month, and that's affordability is obviously the top issue that we're all considering.
Right.
And especially with the Democratic Socialist agenda of, saying we're going to try to make things as affordable as possible and like freezing the rents in New York City, it's a lot to combat and to come up against. I do think that this bipartisan bill, first of all, bodes well for Trump right now, because I don't think people want more division. I do think people want to come together more, especially the people who have defected from both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So anything that's bipartisan is good. And secondly, this is a very popular measure for a reason. There has been a ton of talk on social media about how frustrated everyone is about those big venture capitalist companies coming in and taking people's opportunities away to have their first home. Yeah. And so I do think this is on the top of people's minds. I do think that this is something that's political, and I think it's a win all around, and we really are way overdue for one of those.
Absolutely. Chet, the young people were just being priced out of not just, one particular market where, housing was sluggish. It's really nationwide. This is a crisis. Does it fix that? Do you think this legislation will fix it?
Yeah, this is a great win for the president. President Trump is actually being able to bring back the American dream, like you said, to the young people in this country who've been fighting for decades trying to get out from under this malaise of stagnation and what's going on in this country. So this is absolutely where we need to see the Republican Party moving, especially as we get toward the midterms, is these kind of policy wins are great. They put the wind in the sails for the Republican Party and help to bolster poll numbers. And it combats this narrative that Republicans are against certain things like helping people, helping the working class, helping poor people. These type of bills continue to break down that narrative and allow for the president, allow for Republicans to be able to go back to their districts to talk about what are the wins that they're bringing back to the American people. And that's what's really exciting.
And to your point, Madeline, it's just really exciting that we got both sides of the aisle to agree on something. I mean, that's a win. I can't remember the last time it happened. What, in your opinion, though, still needs to happen to solve, the crisis, the affordability crisis, beyond the legislation?
Yeah, I do think that you guys both made really good points. One of which is about the narrative, and the other is about what we can do when we come together, right? Because I think that the affordability crisis isn't going to get solved until we start telling the truth about what's going on, right? So part of the narrative that is working against the Republicans right now, which is the truth, is that they are in the pockets of billionaires. I'm not saying Democrats aren't too; they for sure are, right? But when you're trying to blame the Democrats for that, and you've got President Trump on stage getting inaugurated next to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, it's not a good look if you're trying to say we care about people who aren't billionaires, right? So I think that what's going to have to happen to deal with this affordability crisis is he's going to have to put his money where his mouth is and present more measures like this, whether it's related to groceries or healthcare or whatever, that says we're not going to do something that's going to benefit those deep state interests like big oil or the insurance companies or something like that. We're going to do something that's going to benefit the American people instead, because I do think that will draw bipartisan support and kind of putting both of those points together. It's really the only way I think that we can move forward. I always say the next person who's going to get elected, if it's not somebody who's just whoever's next in line, is going to be the person that's going to be able to put words to reality that everyone can get behind. They're going to be able to say what the actual truth is, and everybody's going to have to look at that and go, yeah, that's right. So yeah. I think the second that Trump can do that, the better he will be.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Madeline, but I guess what makes me scratch my head, and Chet, jump in on this, is when did billionaires become the bad guys? These are people who are starting industry. Many of them, it's a rags to riches story. They've, built their industry and they create jobs. And when you start taxing billionaires and beating up on them, guess what they do? They pull up their tent pegs and they leave and they take their jobs with them. Chet, jump in.
I absolutely agree. Again, like James said, amazing host who has the right, ask the right questions and say the right thing. So, but what we need to be focusing about in America right now, especially as conservatives, is we need more of these bills to pass to have leadership in this country, because what's happening is the vacuum of leadership is allowing for crazy policies, and the Mondamiites and the Democratic Socialists that you see going on in New York, and you see this going on around the country, to come to bear. The American people just want solutions. They don't care who's actually doing it, as a Republican or a Democrat, right? They want solutions. And that's what we need more from the Republican Party. And the more wins we get like this, the more logical, reasonable policies we'll have, versus the Democratic Socialists, which want to literally destroy American values, American way of life, and turn it into some weird globalist state.
Here's hoping. Madeline Somerville, Chet Love, don't go anywhere. I have a lot more to talk about with both of you. We'll see you in just a few minutes.